Hello, and welcome to Scotty Doesn't Know Episode 2. Before we get started, I would like to talk about this channel and what I hope to do with it. In my intro video, I said I wanted to use it to fight anxiety and depression. Before we can really get our hands dirty though, I think it's important to talk a little bit about myself and where I'm coming from. So the next few episodes will primarily focus on me and my perception of the problem. My hope is that people will be able to relate to my experiences and that it will give them important context in future videos where I hope to expand far beyond myself and look at anxiety and depression as societal problems. So with that out of the way, here's today's video. Because
Scotty doesn't know. Oh, Scotty doesn't know. Oh, so don't tell Scotty.
I am a shy person, a painfully shy person. For me, any social interaction is a stressful situation, particularly interactions with strangers. I have done nothing but beat myself up about it since I was a kid, because from my perspective, socializing is something that comes easy for other people. As a result, I have always felt abnormal, which is great because I also suffer from depression. A month or so ago, I came across a TED Talk that I really related to. If you suffer from any kind of shyness yourself, I think you will find this talk enlightening. The talk is presented by Australian comedian Jordan Raskopoulos. She suffers from severe social anxiety, but is still able to perform in front of thousands of people without breaking a sweat. This is something I can relate to, but we'll get to that in a second. Here's Jordan.
Come on, yes! Yes! Ah! Rock and roll, come on Sydney, let's make some noise! Yeah! Awesome, yeah! All right, yes, now make some noise if you love TEDx! Yes! Make some noise if you hate public speaking! Yes! Make some noise if you suffer from stage fright! Make some noise if the idea of giving a talk in front of thousands of people is your nightmare. Yes. Yes. It's not for me. No, I love this. I love this. This is my home. I know how this works. I know all the rules here. I know how this works. I know I can drop my voice a little bit, get a little more conversational, talk to someone in the front row. Hey, how you doing? TEDx, am I right? Rock and roll. And then when I look up, we all feel like we know each other a little bit better. Yeah. I know that I can walk over here and say something silly like fart. Fart! You'll probably laugh. Maybe not. It's a pretty conservative audience. It was a risk. I know that I can raise my voice to a crescendo and let silence hang for 3 seconds and then speak quietly, purposefully, and softly, and I have your full attention.
So I'm one of those people who majored in theater in college, and in my spare time I'm a stage actor. This involves getting up in front of lots of people and performing. This past December I was the star of a one-man Christmas show where I was the only performer, just me performing while 100 strangers watched. Wait a minute, I hear you saying. You told us you were painfully shy and suffered from social anxiety. Yes, I did. And I do.
I do not get stage fright. So people find it really odd when I tell them that I have an anxiety disorder. How on earth can you have a problem with anxiety, Jordan, when you are so confident on stage? Well, see, the problem is I am only confident on stage.
And people often wonder how that could possibly be true. How a place that is terrifying for most people can be a comfortable place for people like me and Jordan. For me, at least, I feel a lot more comfortable pretending to be someone else than I do trying to figure out how to be myself. And the nice thing about being on stage is I don't have to try and figure out what to say. The lines are written down for me, and I have them memorized. I always know what to say next. And if someone is on stage with me, I always know what they're going to say next. There's no anxiety based around how people are going to react to me. Everything is known. I am in control. For me, that's comforting.
If you meet me afterwards or in the street, you will see me as a timid, mumbly wreck who is probably lost for words. See, the nuances of mental health are often lost on people. When people hear mentally ill, they think crazy. When people think depressed, they think sad. When people hear anxiety, they think very, very scared all the time. And for some people, that is their truth, but it's not for me. No, I am very, very scared in particular situations, scenarios, with particular processes, with particular people. And I am surprisingly confident in other situations which would be terrible for people, like this. When people describe the sensation of stage fright, they often say things like, I'm nervous, I might be lost for words, I might forget what to say, people are looking at me, people are judging me, I think I've talked too much, everything is racing in my head, and I feel like I'm going to freeze. And I know those feelings, I just don't get them on the stage. I get them when I'm talking to someone and I don't know what their name is. I get them if I go to a party and I turn up too early or too late, or overdressed or underdressed, or if I don't see anybody I know. I get them in most conversations, particularly conversations with people I don't know very well. I get terrified when I have a chatty taxi driver. Or hairdresser. Or plumber. I get terrified, like I said, in most conversations. I'm terrified of checking my email, and I am absolutely petrified about talking on the telephone. Yeah. I don't get stage fright, I get life fright.
This is a place where Jordan and I differ a bit. I don't really mind conversation. I actually drove for Uber and Lyft for a while, and I quite enjoyed it. I don't really like to start conversations, but if someone starts a conversation with me, I can be quite chatty. My specific fear is one of embarrassment. I literally stay up at night sometimes thinking of all the embarrassing situations I have ever found myself in, going all the way back to grade school. To me, the feeling of embarrassment is an unfriendly reminder that I don't fit in properly in society, and I criticize myself heavily for it. So I try and keep every interaction I find myself in as formal as possible so there's no risk of embarrassment. Imagine how scary the prospect of asking someone out is for me. The possibilities for horrifying levels of embarrassment are much, much too high. This is why I can count the number of women I have ever asked out on one hand.
Sometimes I'll try to challenge myself, think I might go out for the weekend and meet people, have a good time, So I'll get all dressed up, put on a nice frock, do my makeup, get an Uber, cross my fingers he doesn't want to chat. And I'll get to an event, probably a bit early, and notice that nobody's there yet. So rather than be the first one to go in, I think I'll stand outside for a little bit and pace back and forth. But then I think, maybe people are watching me pacing back and forth, and that's not a really good thing to be doing, so I'm just going to walk around the block a couple of times. But after I've done that for a little while, then I think, maybe people are noticing me walk around the block, I better go in. I go in, I notice that I don't know anyone, and so I go to the toilet for a good 20, 25 minutes. Then I think, there's probably people waiting for the toilet, and they're standing out going, what is it with this woman in the toilet? Why is she taking so long? What is wrong with her bowel? I really need to go. And so I leave the toilet, I notice that there's a bit of a queue, and I notice that they are watching me, and they are judging me, and my thoughts are racing, I don't know what to do, and I freeze. Like I say, life fright.
And yeah, that's all pretty accurate to me. It really is a problem of hyper-awareness. I can't not be worried about the idea that I'm being observed and judged by people. Why that's such a big problem, I have no idea. I just know that it makes me anxious and puts me in fight or flight mode for much of the time that I'm in public, which makes being in public very uncomfortable at times.
It has only been in the last couple of years that I have spoken to people who have a similar relationship with anxiety as I do. It's quite common amongst performers, actually, and I have one friend who describes herself as shy loud. Yeah, and I quite like the phrase, shy loud.
And that also matches my experience. I know a lot of actors who suffer with similar issues, but don't seem to be fazed by performing in front of people. A lot of classic film stars also seem to have the same issue. Greta Garbo, for instance, was famously reclusive, but by all accounts a brilliant performer. And I was recently watching a documentary about Judy Garland, and it seems like she had a lot of those issues too.
And it was only in the last year that I actually became acquainted with the ideas of situational anxiety, social anxiety, and high-functioning anxiety. Now, the thing is, when somebody's anxiety is high-functioning, that means that they work in society. In fact, we work really well, us shy louds. We have such a heightened sense of worry and such a fear of failure that we are often very high-achieving and perfectionists. The problem is that our level of worry is so high that even simple tasks require a huge amount of mental energy, and completing multiple tasks at the same time is very difficult, which is why situations where there's a lot of stimulation, like a party, can overwhelm us and make us shut down. When I was asked to come on board and give a TED talk, I was told that the organisers like to be very involved with the talks. Yes. And so when I signed up, I was bombarded with a whole series of emails, many phone calls, and a schedule of when I was going to have a coffee and a meeting, and when they were going to expect a plan and a first draft and a second draft, and when we were going to have a rehearsal and a dinner and another coffee and a chat. All reasonable things, right? Have some social occasions to make people less nervous, and break down the task into manageable chunks. Complete the first task, then the second task, and so on, until the whole job is done without anyone getting stressed out. Makes sense. Not for me. When I see a list of 7 things, I then get worried about 7 things. And because I don't ever get a little bit worried, I am a lot worried about 7 things, and I find it very difficult to do any of them, and so I worry and I procrastinate and I do nothing at all. I would do much better if someone said, "You have to do a TED Talk, see you at the TED Talk." The cool thing that I found out, though, is with the type of work I do, my worry is actually me doing the work. So whilst I'm sitting there procrastinating, not actually doing anything, I am doing it, just in the back of my head. So when it comes time to write the thing, it just comes out pretty well formed. For example, this talk was prepared at 5 o'clock in the morning on the day of the first rehearsal. So all I've worked out, right, is I just need to leave everything to the last minute and it'll be fine.
Yeah, my work ethic is all over the place. I procrastinate like you wouldn't believe. I have a hard time committing to things because working on something means that you might screw it up, and what is more embarrassing than that? I remember in high school theater, I was assigned to build an archway for a set. There was another identical archway that I was supposed to copy, so all I had to do was measure this other archway, cut the wood, and screw it together. Simple. Somehow, though, I managed to mess it up so bad that we had to go out and buy new lumber, because the lumber I cut was not the right length and was completely useless. These are the incidents that keep me up at night.
Which is an absolutely terrible way to work, okay? It's not sustainable. It doesn't work in every scenario. It's not very good for my well-being. And when I talk about it like that, I sound very, very arrogant. And that is the paradox of the shy loud. People see me on stage and they presume that I am confident and outgoing and fun and well-spoken, and when they meet me in person, they notice that I don't hold up my end of the conversation. I rarely start conversations. I have trouble making eye contact, I ask very few questions, and I often make excuses to leave. So they look at me and determine from these 2 sets of behaviours that I am rude, and I am aloof, and I am arrogant.
A lot of my friends have told me that they thought I was rude or standoffish when they first met me, and it's because they saw how personable I was on stage and assumed that that was my real personality. But like I said, I don't like starting conversations with people because of the potential embarrassment. So even if I find someone interesting and would like to talk to them, I will wait and hope that they start a conversation with me first. If they don't, I just never talk to them.
When people work with me, they see that my work is generally of a high quality, but they also see that I don't answer the emails, I don't answer the phone, I struggle with deadlines. And so they determine, once again, that yes, I am talented, and yes, I am smart, but I am lazy, and I am unreliable.
I am coming off of an entire year of unemployment because job interviews are the most nerve-wracking thing I can imagine doing. But the truth is, I am also averse to trying because putting effort into something means running the risk of failure, and failure means humiliation and self-loathing for me. When I do try, I tend to overcompensate and turn into a control freak to try and make sure that failure is not a possibility.
The truth is, I'm not rude. I'm very nice. I'm also very, very shy. I'm not aloof. I actually care about the thoughts, opinions, and feelings of people so much that I'm often stunned into silence and I don't know what to say. I'm not arrogant. Oh, man. I actually have quite a low opinion of myself.
And that's the truth. All of this comes from low self-esteem. I'm afraid that I'm going to screw up and that nobody will like me. And that nervousness causes me to screw up, and nobody likes me. Except that isn't true. People are much more willing to forgive my screw-ups than I give them credit for. This is something I know in my mind, and most days it helps. But there are other days when I feel like a useless waste of space and can't fathom how anybody could possibly like me.
And I'm not lazy. I actually think about the work that I am doing so much that I just can't do it. I never get to relax. I never stop. I'm never relaxing, even when I'm procrastinating. You know, I did prepare the talk at 5 a.m. on the day of the rehearsal, but I was actually rehearsing it for a good 2 months beforehand in the back of my head. I never relax unless I'm here. In these spaces, in this time that I get to share with an audience, because when I am in this space, I only need to focus on one thing. Fart!
I know exactly what she's talking about. My mind tends to wander to a ridiculous degree whether I want it to or not, to the point where I sometimes wonder if I suffer from either ADD or OCD. But when I'm on stage, I'm able to apply myself to the task at hand. Having an audience there keeps me focused. Whereas when I work by myself, I find that I have a hard time not half-assing things and trying to finish them faster.
Something very freeing about finding out that you have a mental health issue. Oh, there's nothing wrong with me. There's just something wrong with me. Maybe I can do something about that. And I have. Talking helps. Talking about it helps. So this, right now, is helping.
Talking about it helps. So this right here is helping.
Which is really good, because you don't get paid for doing a TED Talk, so. Yeah. Might as well get some therapy out of it. Genuine therapy is really, really good too. And if you find someone who can help take you out of yourself and analyze your own behavior in moments of crisis and calm yourself down, that is really great. I'm not a psychologist, so I won't go into the mechanics of cognitive behavioral therapy, but I will say that it is very good for these sorts of things. I also find that I am most anxious when I am idle, so I find it hard to relax when I've got nothing to do. So I have a lot of hobbies, and in particular, I have hobbies that engage my brain and require a lot of concentration. So I paint, I play games of strategy, and I also do roller derby. Yeah, yes. Yes, because it requires a lot of brain power to stay on wheels and not get hit. Also, my roller derby name is Judge Booty. Controlling your environment is really important too. And if I find that I'm in a situation where I can't cope, I'll find a way to take myself out. But I also take control of the environments that I occupy. Different parts of my apartment are devoted to different parts of my life. If I am writing, I write by the desk near the window. If I am painting, I paint at the red desk near my bedroom, near my kitchen. If I am playing games, I play on the desk in my bedroom. Okay, basically, if you have anxiety, all you need to do, lots of desks. I also have allies. I have friends. I make sure that I don't go to social occasions alone. And if they see me struggling in a conversation, they will introduce themselves to share the load, often starting by asking the person's name just to make sure that I've got it. They also know to recognize when I need to evacuate and help me get out. Yeah. The other thing that I've noticed is the strength that I have because of my anxiety. I deal with such a heightened level of stress and worry that I am often very, very good in situations when people are typically stressed and worried. Very good on stage, quite good at public speaking. I'm a very good improviser, I am quick-witted, but I'm also really, really good at taking charge in a moment of crisis.
Yeah, I've also noticed that I'm really good and strangely calm in a crisis. Everyday things like going to the store seem to rattle me quite a bit. Car crashes and medical emergencies somehow do not.
Like I said, when I can focus on one thing, I thrive. When I first thought that I might have a problem with anxiety, I spoke with my doctor. And my doctor said, yes, it sounds like you might have a problem with anxiety. You would benefit from speaking to an expert. And then she handed me a piece of paper with a phone number on it. And I thought about ringing that number for a long time. I'm just too bloody scared of phones.
I'm starting to get over my phone phobia, but for a long time a phone call was one of my worst fears. I think there's something about not being able to see the person you're talking to and not knowing what their facial expression is that makes it nerve-wracking.
And yet, I have no issue talking about it to 4,000 people tonight. Fart!
So that was Jordan Raskopoulos, and like I said, I really enjoyed that talk because it resonates a lot with me personally. So I've identified that I have a specific phobia when it comes to public embarrassment. Where does this phobia come from and how can I fix it? I think one issue is that I'm just naturally anxious. When I was a teenager, I used to get adrenaline rushes in circumstances that wouldn't cause most people any kind of distress. Like, I remember walking into an unfamiliar office building one time and getting a rush of adrenaline because I knew I was going to have to ask someone for directions to get to where I was going. Since then, I've been taking anti-anxiety medication to help reduce those physical effects. The other issue, I think, has to do with toxic masculinity. And it just so happens that I have chosen that as the topic of my next video. So please join me next time. I hope you found this episode illuminating. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and I will catch you all later.
So don't tell Scotty, Scotty doesn't know.